Once upon a time, nestled on the edge of a dark, dense forest, there lived a humble woodcutter in a small cottage. He shared his home with his two children, Hansel and Gretel, and his new wife, their stepmother. Though the children greeted her with open arms, their stepmother held no love for them, her heart cold and distant. One year, a terrible famine gripped the village. Food was scarce, and every meal was precious. As the famine deepened, the stepmother saw a chance to rid herself of the children, making life easier for her and her husband. One day, she prepared a small meal for the children and called them to eat. "Come, children," she said, "your meal awaits." Grateful and hungry, Hansel and Gretel sat down. Hansel thanked his stepmother and shared his portion with Gretel. However, their father, the woodcutter, often sacrificed his food for them, hoping it would keep his children strong. Each night, he'd give them his meal, growing weaker with each passing day. One evening, as the woodcutter prepared to rest, he told the children, "I'm weary. Please, take my portion tonight." The stepmother grew furious. She whispered to him when the children had left, "This can't go on. The famine shows no signs of ending. They eat so much, and you're becoming too weak to work. We must find a solution." The woodcutter's heart ached. "And what solution do you propose?" he asked. "Let the children learn to survive in the forest while you search the neighboring villages for food," she said. "It will be a lesson in self-sufficiency. We'll come back for them when things are better." But the woodcutter was horrified. "No," he said firmly. "We are family, and families stay together." The next day, while he was away gathering wood to sell in a nearby village, the stepmother saw her chance. She gathered Hansel and Gretel and suggested a picnic in the forest. "Children," she called, "would you like to go on a picnic in the forest?" The children's faces lit up with excitement. "Yes, mother," they cried. As they prepared to leave, Hansel whispered to Gretel, "Something feels strange. We should be prepared." Hansel remembered a story about glowing stones his mother had once mentioned. He slipped away and filled his pockets with small, shiny pebbles, thinking they might help him and his sister find their way back home. Every few steps, he dropped a pebble, creating a trail they could follow if needed. In the forest, the stepmother led them to a clearing and said, "Wait here. I'll gather some wild berries for our picnic." But hours passed, and she never returned. As night fell, the forest grew cold and silent. Hansel comforted Gretel. "Don't worry, the pebbles I left will guide us home." When the moon rose, the stones glowed softly, lighting a path through the dark woods. Holding hands, Hansel and Gretel followed the shimmering trail back home. Their father was relieved to see them and embraced them tightly. However, their stepmother scolded them for wandering off, feigning concern. A few days later, desperate for food, the stepmother took them back into the forest. This time, Hansel had no chance to gather pebbles. Instead, he broke pieces of bread into crumbs, scattering them along the path to make a trail. Once they reached the clearing, she said, "Wait here while I find food," and again disappeared. Night came, and the children tried to follow the crumbs, but they found nothing. Birds and animals had eaten them all. Lost and scared, Hansel and Gretel wandered through the forest for 3 long days, with little to eat and drink. By the 4th day, they were weak and hopeless. Then, a beautiful bird with white feathers appeared. "Look, Gretel," Hansel cried. "What a pretty bird." The bird chirped, fluttering from branch to branch, as if guiding them. They followed the bird until it led them to a strange house made entirely of gingerbread, cakes, and sweets. The roof was made of icing, the windows were sugary panes, and the walls were crafted from chocolate and candy. Starving, Hansel and Gretel couldn't resist. They began to nibble on the candy walls and frosting windows when suddenly a voice croaked, "Who's eating my house?" Startled, they turned to see a frail old woman in tattered clothes. She appeared kind and harmless. "Oh, we're sorry, ma'am," Gretel said. "We were so hungry. We've been lost in the woods for days." The old woman's eyes gleamed as she said, "Poor children. Come inside and eat as much as you want." Hansel and Gretel thanked her and followed her inside, where they found a table full of delicious food. They ate until their bellies were full and felt warm and safe for the first time in days. But this old woman was no kind stranger. She was a wicked witch. She had built the candy house to lure children into her grasp. The next morning, when Hansel woke up, he found himself locked in a cage. "Let me out," he shouted, but the witch only laughed. "Stay there, boy," she sneered. "I'll fatten you up before I eat you." She turned to Gretel, saying, "And you, girl, will cook and clean until he's ready." Every day, the witch would feel Hansel's finger to check if he had grown plump enough to eat. But Hansel, clever as ever, showed her a twig instead, and the nearly blind witch believed it, thinking he was still thin. Weeks passed, and the witch grew impatient. "I can't wait any longer," she declared one morning. "Thin or not, I'm going to eat you, boy." She told Gretel to check if the oven was hot enough. Suspecting the witch wanted to roast her too, Gretel said, "I don't know how." "You foolish girl," the witch snapped. "I'll show you." She leaned into the oven to check, and quick-thinking Gretel seized her chance. She pushed the witch inside and shut the door. Hansel cheered as Gretel freed him from the cage. They explored the witch's house, finding jewels and gold hidden in a chest. They filled their pockets, thinking it might help them and their father survive the famine, and left the house to find their way back home. After days of wandering, they finally saw their cottage. Their father was overjoyed to see them and held them close, apologizing for not protecting them better. They told him about the wicked witch, and when he saw the gold, he was relieved, knowing they'd never struggle for food again. As for the stepmother, she had vanished, and no one knew where she went. Hansel, Gretel, and their father lived in peace, using the gold not only for themselves, but also to help their neighbors who were suffering from the famine. With love, kindness, and wisdom, they rebuilt their lives, supporting each other through hardships. In time, they became a family that the village admired. Hansel and Gretel learned that even the darkest moments can be overcome with clever thinking and love. They lived not only happily ever after, but with a sense of purpose, helping others and remembering the strength they found in each other.